In the path of self-liberating awareness, which is pretty much Dzogchen, how that's often described, the emphasis is put on recognition of the nature of mind, and that's pointed out to the person who's studying by somebody who has experienced that in a number of forms. You can, if somebody writes that down with it clearly, that has experienced it, has mastered it, that ability to experience unimpeded clarity of awareness, then the writing of that can be enough to point you, the reader, if there's enough body of experience and the ability to understand clearly what that is pointing towards, to then go and experience that right there and then as it's being pointed out. And in the Dzogchen tradition, the name or the word that they use to call that experience of the direct experience of pristine awareness, of the very nature of the mind, the essential nature of the mind, is Rigpa. And Rigpa sort of in this context translates as awareness. So the whole process in Dzogchen is to first recognize awareness, recognize Rigpa, and experience through the direct experience of it. Now, the word Rigpa is not a description of what awareness is. Rigpa is the embodiment, is the embodied experience of awareness, and it's not a concept. It's a direct experience. Just as Christians would say, God is not a concept, even though both those are spoken in terms of concepts. And in one sense, when you get to it and you've understood and you've directly experienced, God and Rigpa are exactly the same thing, just different phraseologies. And then once you have recognized the nature of the mind, the pristine awareness, Rigpa, the process then moves into what they call meditation or conduct. Is you train yourself to experience or enter that state, or let go of everything that's not that state, so that you allow that essence to come forth as often as you can. So you repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, many times throughout the day, so that you are slowly allowing the length of that experience to naturally extend. When you first recognize Rigpa, like if you can do that right now, if you can just become aware of awareness, but without thinking, just become aware of the awareness that is aware, you can contact that quite quickly. But the thing that you may notice, and probably everybody does, is it just comes and it just lingers for maybe a second or two or three, or a short time. And then you start thinking about it. You start, oh, that was it. Thought starts again. Ego identification starts again. So in the meditative process, that process is allowing Rigpa to arise, so that boom, a Rigpa is present, and then what the conscious being that's practicing does is stay ever present and alert within that state. And the moment thought arises or anything appears that is not it, recognize that that is a distraction and bring the mind of ego mind back and rest it in pristine awareness. So it's not so much that you don't develop awareness, you relax non-awareness. And one of the techniques that they talk about in Dzogchen is trekcho, and sometimes it's described as tadak trekcho. And tadak is the primordial purity of pristine awareness. And trekcho is the cutting through. So the process of when you notice something rise in the mind, you might become aware of an emotion, or you might become aware of a thought or an opinion, or anything. Something arises in the mind that the you then identifies as, I am aware of that. Or the cutting through, the trekcho, is recognizing that whenever there is an object in the mind that is being identified with, is to look straight into, so to speak, with the mind's eye, look straight into that object to what it is that is aware of what is aware of it. It just cuts straight through identifying the object, and immediately one is resting the mind back or in awareness itself. Language is a little bit tricky, really. You've got to discover it for yourself, because all that I've said doesn't actually happen, but it sort of does. There is no you. You don't go back to awareness. Awareness is already there. What actually happens is you let the cloud of obscuration, which is the cognition, the cognizing process of brain function, and the emotional body, which is the mixture of feelings and thoughts. It's that you let that cloud disperse, so that you're not actually going back to awareness, you're allowing awareness to be unencumbered by anything. And you carry that process on, what's called trekcho, throughout the whole day, throughout the entire life, actually. You recognize the moment of it being a clouded state of awareness. Awareness has been muddied up, clouded. It's a bit like looking into water and a pond of water and stirring up the bottom, it becomes cloudy. Or the cloudiness of the water is the emotions, are the concepts, or the cognition that's happening in there. It's the habitual tendencies, your reactions, etc. And the karmic propensities, it's dualistic fixation, identification. All that is the muck that's in the water, and the water is the awareness, your original state of being, and everything else is added, and it takes your awareness. It clouds the field of awareness, and the you that identifies as me, myself, and I latches onto the particles that are clouding awareness, so that we live our life out of the meanings that we give to things, rather than living our life with pure awareness. And when you recognize Rigpa, and you recognize not Rigpa, which is the clouded state, you recognize that everything that you are, the dialogue you're having with yourself, how you talk to yourself in your mind, for example, in your head, everything that is not Rigpa, which is the direct experience of awareness, awareness, you cut through that. So the will that you are expressing as a living being that is waking up to fullness of being cuts through. That's what you do. You keep recognizing when identification has occurred, and you cut through that by focusing on the awareness that all you go look directly at the essential nature of your identity. What is that? And you go straight to the awareness. What is aware of the identity? What is aware of, when I see a tree, the identity that's being made is tree, for example. I am identifying the object in awareness as tree. I am doing that. That tree doesn't call itself a tree. We do that. We name things because that's what the human mind does, and that's actually a survival mode, and that's what the ego does. The ego is there for survival and self-defense, to prop the self up, keep it alive, and defend it from dying. And it's just a mundane function that happens on the physical reality of an incarnated being, or everything that lives, actually. So Trekcho is the cutting through, is that moment where you recognise the labelling, you recognise the not awareness, and you bring awareness to that. And the moment that you have recognised something that's a distraction to that state of mind, what recognises that is Rigpa itself. So you don't have to do a lot. You just basically have to turn the light switch back on, flick the switch back to awareness, and it happens that fast. Once you've recognised Rigpa, and you've trained in it enough, and you've recognised it enough times, and you have become familiar with it, your confidence in it strengthens, and your ability to apply that technique of Trekcho strengthens, and it just becomes almost like a new habit. But this time it's a habit that doesn't cloud. It's a habit of clarity. And you keep exploring that way, and eventually you will discover that everything is an expression of awareness, and you experience everything with awareness. And there's a knowing that you'll know that tree is tree, or that object in the outer environment is what we call tree, but you won't have to go through the mental process. Tree, dog, cat, bird, food, water, manure. You won't have to go through the process of that mental retelling yourself what everything is every time you experience it. There'll be a knowing. There's knowing and awareness. And when we're dwelling or resting the busy mind, resting the mind of self in awareness, self disappears. And it is everything, just awareness does everything. Awareness manages your life. There's some good books to read on Dzogchen. Crystal in the Way of the Light, I just forget who the author is. I think it might be Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche himself. That's a pretty good one to give you some, like, he gives some very in-depth information, and it's a broad covering of it. Another good one from one of his students, whom I forget, which I will see if I can't find it. I don't have it here with me. Is a book called "You Are the Eyes of the World." You are the eyes of the world, and I think it's Lipman or Kenneth and the forward to that book, or the introduction in that book, I think, or forward, I think it is, or preface, I forget which one it is by Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. And it's a commentary on a particular famous ancient Dzogchen text, and it's beautiful. You know, the text is, well, the sutra, the text is in a poetic prose, so it is, each verse stops the mind in the same way that a Zen koan stops the mind. So you can get a real sense for the feeling quality of clarity and presence. And talking of koan in the Zen tradition, which are those sort of, you know, what is the sound of one hand clapping, those types of Zen riddles, and there's many of them. I was told one time that the word koan literally means dead end speech. And when somebody, or when you hear one of those riddles, Zen riddles, it sets up a conundrum in the mind that you can't really think about it, you know, because it goes beyond the logic of thinking that we have come to base our structure of understanding on. So it brings you to a point of dead end speech, no thought. Boom, stops your thinking. And in that moment that it stops the thinking, you will notice that there's a quality of the mind that is just almost totally quiet, and at the same time totally moving, searching, looking for. And it's like it's an opportunity to recognize the mind of awareness right there at the moment thought stops, at the dead end of speech. Boom. And a good way to contact that is simply by, you can do this now with me, is listen to that. Can you hear that? The mind that stops and listens, like listen, what's that? That mind that stops, it is the self-mind has stopped because it doesn't know what it hasn't recognized anything, so it doesn't know. So there's a moment of having to get out of the road so pristine awareness can pull experience with clarity. In that dead-end speech point, at that precise moment, right there is the time to recognize the nature of the mind, the essential nature of the mind, the empty, cognizant quality of awareness, and see how those two are divided. There's an emptiness, like space-like quality, and there's awareness, there's knowing, and those two are indivisible. Wherever there is awareness, there's space, and wherever there's space, there is awareness. And that indivisible, that it cannot be separated, that's where the capacity of awareness manifests. And when you can see that all the capacity or the manifest form, the capacity to manifest, the mind, the awareness that knows and the awareness that is empty are indivisible, that they are always present in everything, in all existence, in the screen that you're looking at, in the sound that you can hear. When you see that and you come to the direct experience of that, that's what's called the essence body. And when you see the empty quality of the mind, That is called the truth body, Dharmakaya. When you see the cognizant quality of mind, that knows, that is called the bliss body, or the enjoyment body, the Sambhogakaya. And when you see the manifest form of that, that is called the Nirmanakaya, the manifest body. A thought. It's often referred to as an awakened being, but it's everything that's in manifest form. And when you see those three are indivisible, it's called the essence body. There's these different, you can break experiences up all the time into bits and pieces, and see how they fit together. That's one of the capacities of the human mind, or of awareness. That's manifest in human form. So I really want to give the very limited understanding that has been developed here thus far to everybody. I want to be able to share what is not mine, that what is everybody's. And I think it's important at this time in humanity, where there's so much unease in the world at the moment with humans and what we're doing to the planet and what we're doing to each other, that we all start to wake from it and realize, like, experience the paradigm shift of wisdom. So, may you all be well and happy, and enjoy life and become aware. Just become aware. See ya. Have a good one.